Hi, everybody. It's great to be here in beautiful Miami. It's my first time in Miami. Is it anybody else's first time? Okay, somebody lives here, but there's a couple hands here. So I've never been to Miami, and the entire time on my way here, I had the Will Smith song stuck in my head. And every time somebody would ask me where I was headed, I would be like, I'm going to Miami. So hi, my name is Christine Spang, and I'm the founder and CTO of a company called Nylas. I've been building Nylas for the past around a decade. When I started building Nylas, I was the engineer. I was actually building the code and building the product, and today I actually lead our entire technology strategy, and the company is about 150 people. So our product is a communications platform and an API platform that makes it really easy to connect your backend to all of the data inside email, contacts, and calendars. This is really powerful. We have over 1,000 businesses that build using our platform. And what people are doing is essentially getting quick, easy access to all of that really valuable data using our modern APIs, as well as essentially automating workflows with email, with contacts, with calendar. There's a lot of tools out there where you want to kind of bring all the information into the same place and make use of it, whether that's to pull out insights or simply to pull context together. And you also want to be able to drive actions using this data. So a lot of folks using the platform to build, and that's really the background with which I'm bringing you this talk. So this talk is about the latest hotness on the street, what everybody's talking about, AI. And I'm going to kick this off with a little miniature rant about words. And that's because I mentioned that I'm a software engineer by training. And what even does AI mean? When I was in college, artificial intelligence meant kind of a set of techniques around traditional machine learning. It meant regression models. It meant neural nets and hill climbing, reinforcement learning. And it also meant having an army of data labelers in some far-off country that you would pay to label that data so that you could make use of it with models. So essentially, it's programming with data. And there was a set of use cases where it really made sense to do that. And you had a certain set of capabilities that came out of that, which was really around usually drawing some sort of insights from your data and also decision making. And so the really cool and interesting thing that's happened in the last couple of years is a couple new sort of techniques and technologies have come onto the scene that have expanded that set of capabilities to also involve generating output, generating content. And of course, we could do that before, but from my perspective, people really like to use the words AI when a capability kind of jumps into the realm of feeling magical. And large language models, which is one of the kind of new techniques that's come about in the last couple of years, is a technique and a technology that has driven that magic into a new set of use cases. And so the way that I really think about AI and technology and software in general is that computing is all about giving more leverage to individuals and to groups. Back in the day, we used to have to go out and carry water from a water source to our houses. And then we invented technology that made that go away. We just turn on the tap and there's running water. That's kind of an original technology that saved people a lot of time. And then we invented language, and then we needed to be able to organize all the information that we started storing and passing on to each other. And that's where computers really kind of came into play. And so we've spent the last 5 decades since the advent of the personal computer in the 70s inventing better and better ways to kind of track, make use of all of this data and information that we have in the world. And AI today is a new set of techniques that really pushes the capabilities and the capacities of computers to generate that leverage for people. and that's really exciting. So where are we at today? You saw in the title of this talk, I talk a lot about chatbots. And chatbots are one of those technologies that used to be really crappy. I actually gave a talk about 4 years ago where I was on stage with someone who ran the technology program at a travel company. And he gave this rant about how nobody, when they're traveling, wants to talk to a chatbot because it's going to be absolutely useless. And now today, he's running the team that built their chatbot. And the reason for that is because they're a lot better today using the new technologies with large language models that have really represented a huge leap forward in the capabilities for things like chatbots. We're also able to do things like better organize and access our knowledge bases. And that's because large language models and chat interfaces have really made it easier to access this sort of information in a very human-like fashion. People, from when they're children, learn how to talk to other people. And most people out there talk to other people regularly, usually daily. But the way that we've organized our information up until today has really been about reading. And there's a lot more people out there that talk to people every day than that read a book every day. And so by being able to access book-like information using a chat-like interface, that's made things much more accessible and easy to use for a wide range of the population. And then another place where generative AI is really shining today is in coding assistants. How many people here use something like GitHub Copilot? A lot of hands. Copilot and other coding assistants have really supercharged essentially autocomplete capabilities by having more information about what code typically looks like. And it's a use case where it's really useful because there's really easy and sort of straightforward ways to check that the output is actually valid and that it works. So that you can have, it's a place where it doesn't really matter if there's like some hallucinations or if things are a little bit off because you can run the code and if it works, it works. And if it doesn't work, you can fix it. So these are 3 use cases where generative AI has really represented just a significant leap forward in kind of the state of the art and introduced a lot more magic into some of the powers of computing. We launched an example of this last August. It's a thing called Nylas Assist. And this is just a little demo video of Nylas Assist in action. And so I mentioned that we're a developer platform, and so we have a set of API docs and SDKs, and this is essentially like the reference manual for our APIs online. And we also have a support team, and whenever people go to the docs and they can't figure out the answer to their question, they go and submit a ticket to our support team, and a person will answer them. And these are kind of like the 2 extremes. You either read the book, and we try to make it easy for you to find what you're looking for, or you got to talk to a person. And so Nylas Assist, which is essentially a chat interface to our docs, bridges the gap between that book interface and the talk to a human interface by giving you a chat interface that helps you find what you're looking for and answer the questions. And then, if it's still not working properly, of course, you can always escalate to a support ticket and have a person help you at the end of the day. But like I mentioned, these chatbots are really useful today. We launched Nylas Assist in August of 2023. And over the next 6 months, we saw our number of support tickets drop by 25%. All the while, we increased our customer base by over 30%. So this is something that makes the user experience a lot better because people find what they're looking for a lot faster. And it also makes it more efficient for us to run our business because we don't have a bunch of people that are answering questions that can be answered simply by accessing the documentation and what writing that we already have online. So it's really win-win for both parties. I know a lot of developers, and I don't know about you, but I hate having to pick up the phone or call into a support line or just even submit a ticket because I'm trying to solve my problem now. I want the answer to my problem today and not in 2 hours because I'm in a flow state, and if I can get my answer right away, I don't have to break that flow state. I can just go ahead and get on with my life, figure out what I need to know, and make the thing I'm trying to make. So this leads to the question of really what's next with AI and generative AI in general. And a lot of people have a lot of different opinions about this. Some people feel like the next thing in AI is going to be agents. So we're going to have these like fully autonomous sort of things that just like get stuff done for us. I have a different opinion. And where I'm at and where Nylas is at about this is that really kind of the next forefront of where generative AI and AI are going is really all about bringing in the right context to the tools and techniques that we have both today and sort of the next generation of those techniques that we expect to improve over the next couple of years. And a lot of the context that you need in order to get things done comes from communication. So there's a lot of different places where people communicate. They communicate over chat channels. There's SMS. There's kind of like more like letter-like formats like email. There's also synchronous communication where you're talking over something like a video chat or live. And then there's also just completely asynchronous reference communication where maybe you have like an internal wiki at your company, a knowledge base, where people write things down in order for other people to access them later. But at the end of the day, this is all communications data, and the latest techniques in AI have really given us a beautiful and very powerful set of tools to make better use of that communications data. And that's because large language models, they're essentially trained on the entire scrapable contents of the internet. And the exciting thing about them is they basically encode the ordering and even to some extent the semantics of human language in a sort of computer-friendly way, which traditionally when you've been doing natural language processing, it's really hard for computers just in general to understand human language, or at least it used to be, because human language is messy. If you ever learned a foreign language, or especially if English is your second language and you've learned English is really messy. There's a lot of nuance and there's a lot of things that can mean different things depending on the context, and being able to make sense of that is not a capability that's been open to sort of computational processes up until now. So to sum that up, there's a lot of really useful information in communication, and that context is really necessary to enhance the capabilities of all of our computing systems. So today, large language models I mentioned, they're essentially trained on the entire scrapable contents of the internet. And that leads them to be very generic and generalized, which is really great for sort of general purpose understanding of human language. But it's not great for a lot of tool building, actually, because everything that happens, every action that happens in the world happens in a specific context. If I'm trying to get something done at work, well, usually the tools need to have knowledge of the context of my work. So they need to know about all of the sort of knowledge-based information internally. They need to know about the communications that I'm having with my customers, my prospects, with internal stakeholders. Otherwise, we can't build things that essentially surface up and give insights and actions at the end of the day that are useful in that context. They're generally going to be generic. All of the outputs of our data systems are reflective of the data that has gone into those systems. And right now, with a large language model, that means they're going to be very general purpose. So the next sort of frontier, and people are actually already playing around with this today and are building some rudimentary systems for this. But really kind of where this is all going is bringing in the right context into all of our tools so that we can generate custom insights and custom actions at the end of the day. I was talking to this guy the other day who runs a support company, and he wants to do sentiment analysis on all of the support communications that are coming in through the technology that he's built with integrations with kind of all the support systems out there. And a thing that he mentioned to me was that he couldn't use off-the-shelf models because all of those off-the-shelf models were actually trained mostly on social media data. And social media is different than business. The context is different. The words that people use have different semantics and meanings. And typically the way that you write when you're just kind of joking around with your friends online is different than when you're interfacing with a business that you're trying to get something done with. So he actually had to train entirely a specific model for the use case of doing sentiment analysis on support communications. And so in that case, it was all about identifying what is the relevant context that this model needs to take into account, which is the sort of support information, and then training a specific model using that context. And so people can do this today by either sort of ground up training their own models for a specific use case, but that tends to be really expensive, and so a lot of times folks are essentially trying to adapt this context on top of the general purpose models that we have today, using techniques like retrieval augmented generation, sort of using the context window for an LLM to give it the context it needs. And the way I see sort of what's happening today is that everybody in every specific use case needs to figure out how to bring the right context into the models that they're using to enhance the capabilities of those tools. And the reason that there's sort of like an AI renaissance right now is because we essentially had this great leap forward in capability and sort of a set of techniques that grant those capabilities. And then there's almost infinity contexts and use cases where people need to figure out, one, what's the right data that I need to bring in to make this system more useful? Two, what is the right format for that data so that I can make best use of it in a model? For example, at Nylas, we work a lot with email data. And if you've ever worked with email before, you know that, one, it's pretty much the oldest communication channel out there digitally. And it's a really messy format to work with. There's all these headers that you have to use, and even the contents of the message themselves is actually, it's basically sending web pages around as a form of communication. So you can have plain text, you can have HTML, you can have images, you can have links, you can have formatting, and taking those messages and passing them to a model in the right way is actually a huge amount of overhead just to sort of boil the data down into the right format to pass to a model. So every single sort of channel and sort of data integration out there needs to be pre-processed in a specific way in order to make it useful for AI systems. And basically anyone who's building AI systems in production today, most of their effort goes into really data engineering, which is the pipelines that ingest data, bring it in, Oftentimes, you want to be ingesting that data in real time, and then sort of updating your model as in some sort of periodic basis. And so you need to identify what are the right data sources. You need to pre-process all of that data in order to make it something that's going to be easily ingestible and sort of understandable to a computer. And then you also need to figure out sort of what is the right way to sort of access and surface up either the insights that you're trying to generate or the actions that you're trying to offer up to people. And so we here at Nylas, we really see that kind of the most exciting and best thing for people to be doing today is really to keep a human in the loop, sort of in the driver's seat for most use cases. So when you're using a coding copilot, you know, the copilot is not generating all the code and submitting your pull request for you. It's generating the code, and then you're verifying. Maybe you're making changes to it. Maybe you're accepting some suggestions and throwing away others. And the person is in charge at the end of the day. The person is empowered, and all these tools are essentially giving that person, like I mentioned before, more leverage, making things that used to take a lot of time take less time. And at the end of the day, that helps us get certain tasks done more quickly, and also zoom out and sort of act more at a high level than we were able to act before. So there's all of these different use cases, whether it's coding, whether it's sort of all of the different sort of parts of business. There's not only different roles within a business, you know, sales, customer support, marketing, et cetera, but also every single business has a certain set of domain knowledge that is unique to that domain. And so combining all of the right data, getting the right inputs from communications, and pre-processing and sort of feeding this into our computing systems in the right way is going to allow us to generate these customized actions and customized insights that really make our sort of computing tools more powerful at the end of the day. This is just an example of the kind of thing that we can do today that we couldn't do before, or at least we couldn't do very efficiently before, I would say. So this is a capability of the Nylas platform where we essentially ingest different kinds of email data, and some of our customers, you know, communications data is like a giant haystack full of information, and there's all sorts of different information within communications. And so it's not as valuable to just sort of access that pile as it is to drill into the kinds of information that you care about and then connect that data to your other systems. And in this case, the capability that we're exposing here, which is powered by, behind the scenes, by a combination of large language models and other sort of traditional AI ML techniques, is extracting order information from a set of emails. And so this is the kind of thing where, in order to make this data useful to kind of other parts of a computing system, it needs to be structured. And the input data is unstructured. It's essentially web pages that are being sent around from person to person where, you know, I buy something from a retailer and they'll send me a confirmation that says, hey, congrats, you bought this thing. Here's, you know, the items in your order. Here's how much you paid for it. And maybe here's a shipping tracking number so that you can know when you're going to get it. And that's all really useful information. And I, as a person looking at that email, can intuitively understand what's what and what do the labels mean and how should I interpret this data. But a computer just given that web page doesn't understand that data. So with the help of AI ML, we can ingest that data and pre-process it and turn it into a semantically structured set of data. In this case, you can see it's JSON that can be connected to other systems and then be used to just make those other systems better, make them more personalized. We see people essentially using this data for both for kind of like UI improvements, but also for personalization, for making recommendations. And these days, not only is it really important for folks to have access to this data to make our computing systems better, but there's also kind of this trend going on in the world where more and more these days it's really important to get personal data directly from the people that it belongs to. With regulations out there like GDPR in California, there's essentially a GDPR equivalent called CCPA, where you can't go and just like buy data third party, which is how a lot of people did personalization in years past. And so we've seen a lot of folks that are essentially moving to what we call first party data, where you're actually getting that data directly from people, and people want to have personalized experiences. It makes their tools better, it makes their computing experiences better. But people also want to have transparent control over kind of what's happening with that data. All right, so what did we talk about in the last 20 minutes or so? The first thing is that over the past 5 decades, computing has really allowed us to generate a huge amount of leverage for individuals and for organizations. And that leverage is really because computing is about information technology. And when you're programming with data, which is essentially what AI is today, the quality of your output is really dependent on the quality of the inputs. And so it's not just the data set itself, but also what information is within that data set, and then how are we making that accessible to the models that we're using to power tools. And by being able to sort of pull this context data into our models, we can generate customized actions, and we can generate customized insights that, at the end of the day, make each and every person who's using these tools much more effective and powerful. I'm really excited about where all this is going, and the reason for that is because over the course of basically like 10,000 years, the course of technology has allowed people to work together essentially in larger and larger groups. And you can see this with traditional organizations where basically we invented sort of all these sort of organizational techniques where in order to sort of get a really big thing done, which is what we're doing as sort of a civilization, we're trying to get big things done. But in order to get those big things done, we've had to sort of take the work and break it down into lots and lots of sort of little chunks, and then the people who are working on those little chunks don't necessarily have the full context of like what is the big picture of what we're trying to get done, and it can be kind of disempowering to sort of be in a corner sort of working on that small chunk. And so what I'm really excited about is by having more powerful tools and more powerful techniques, each individual person who's doing some job or some task can be more empowered to own more of the big picture. I think we're going to see people getting more things done, both in small teams, but also as individuals that are owning things and building things end to end. And at the end of the day, I think that's a really exciting thing to have happen. It's a great time to be alive, and I hope you guys really enjoy the rest of your day here at Shift. Thank you.